Hey, welcome to another episode of our Let's Talk Player Retention webinar. Just to remind you, that webinar is about improving player retention in your online casino or online betting platform. Today, we're going to talk about data. What's that? Why do you need it? Why don't you need it? And what to do with it. So, today's episode is going to be as difficult as 2 stars out of 3. If you're looking for something easier, like 1 star, please follow our LinkedIn profile because there you will find all the other episodes. My name is Bartek and I'm a co-founder of Create IT. At Create IT, we've been supporting online casinos and online betting operators for well over 10 years. Our strategy is that we help them to build brand awareness through players. So we make players feel good and we make them come back to the platform. We don't really believe in random burning random amounts of money on bonuses. We support retention teams from both technical and marketing sides, and we believe that long-term actions are simply more efficient. Data. Nowadays, everybody takes database decisions. But what does it really mean? Well, we're going to get there today. As for the moment, all you need to know is that you indeed must collect it, because it gives you proofs and not feelings about the performance of your casino. However, the whole trick is not in collecting the data, but understanding the data, getting real value and real knowledge out of it. Let's dig in. So, is working with data a walk in the park? Is it that easy? Not at all. The more you'll get into it, the more confused you'll be. Just to give you an example, sometimes you'll get same data or pretty same data from different sources, and that will draw you to contradictory conclusions. Another thing is that working with data could get expensive. You could get to the point where you have to support very large databases, pay for very expensive tools, and what's most painful, pay for very expensive consultants. And also, at the end of the day, having data is not the same thing as using the data. I've seen a number of times lots of useless analytics not really providing any value for the business. If there's one major takeaway I'd like you to remember after today's episode, it is as follows. Don't jump head first. Think before doing. I've seen companies gathering terabytes of data, not really knowing what for. And I've seen companies having hundreds of dashboards where not even one was used. Let me show you a pretty straightforward routine that you should follow to make sure that you're not burning time or money on your way to get to the database decisions. So the very first thing that you should do is to set up the strategy. So what is the thing that you want to achieve from the business perspective? Then the second step is what do you want to see to support the strategy from the point one? Then the next step is to design it. So how to present the data and how do you want all that to look like to make it very easy for you to understand? And then there's a fourth step, what tools to use to achieve all that. Let's get into a little bit more details. So the first step, the strategy. You should create very clear goals. Where do you want to get? Some people would call them KPIs, but what label we're going to put on that doesn't really matter. What matters is that you should think business, not technical perspective. So don't waste your time on focusing on the tools or the ways how to monitor that, how to get there. Just state where do you want to get. Also, what's important, you should create routines to verify the progress. So, what are the steps you're going to take and how your organization will behave to follow those steps. Then to the next step. On that step, you should think very high level what information you need to see if the goal was achieved, or even more, to be able to see how far away are you from getting to the goal. So once you have that picture in your head, which is a blurry picture, you should start filling the blanks and thinking exactly what is the data that you should have in certain places, where you could take it from, and if you even have this kind of data. Then it's also worth thinking if you would need any help of any expert, specialist, or team members, either from inside your organization or outside of it. Remember, at this stage, you should not worry if you don't have access to certain data or you don't have access to certain specialists. At this point, you know exactly what you want to see and know exactly why you want to see it. So it's high time to take a sheet of paper, take a pencil, and start drawing how it all should look like to make it easy for you to catch the essence of the data. Don't overthink it, it must be easy. Um, a side note, that's a very common mistake of most of the companies. They start and end at this point with no other steps done. This is the last step. In this last step, you should ask yourself a question: how do I do all that? Just to give you a couple of examples. Do you have all the data required to create this kind of dashboard? Is the data fresh? Is it updated on a regular basis? If you don't have it, can you get it? Is it expensive? Is it worth getting it? The same go with the tools. So, do you already have all the required tools inside your organization, or do you need to buy them? Also, you should make sure that the tools are compatible with each other. You should ask yourself a question: how exactly the data should be structured to provide for the figures on the dashboard? And as a side note, don't be too hard on yourself. The first dashboard will never last. You will change it, believe me. I'm fully aware that all of the things that we said so far could be kind of difficult for you. So let's see all that on a real example. Let's imagine I work for an online casino and I'm a head of casino. And the goal for us is to measure the efficiency of a certain marketing campaign. Um, so the definition of the goal is written. So I want at least 75% of the players acquired through this campaign to play not less than 5 games. The lifetime value of a player should not be lower than, say, $100. And we want to have at least 20% of players falling into high roller segment within 6 months from now. So as you can see, our goal has real values, real deadline, and is very, very specific. What we also did is that we've prepared organization around it. So we stated how often do you want to measure the progress of getting to the goal. So this is each month in that particular case. And we've also appointed a person who's responsible for getting to that goal. And in this particular case, this is digital marketing manager. Also, that's a pretty good practice to name the goal or KPI. So in that case, that could be campaign X, whatever the name is, efficiency. In this step, I need to deconstruct the goal created into the data required to visualize it. So what do I need? For sure, I need a number of players acquired through that marketing campaign. For sure, I need to know the number of the games each of them played. I need to know the LTV, lifetime value. I also need to have some information about the segments because we need to know how many of them got into the high roller segment. So now that's the time to create the very first design of the dashboard. Do not overly attach to it. It's just the first design. You'll change it for sure once you start using it. What's important is that I believe that you should be able to see detailed information on each of the characteristics, but it's even more important to get a quick overview of whatever the goal is. So it must contain the information if we already reached the goal or not. Step number 4, how do I make it happen? So the more I get into the details, the more I gotta look where exactly I could get my data from. It's called data sources, by the way. So number of players acquired, my data source could be CRM, it could be Google Analytics, it could be custom webhooks on my online platform. When it comes to games played, LTV, or segmentation, all those I could get from CRM. So I was lucky enough to have access to all the data. Mm, when it comes to creating the report and making it live, if I do it for the first time, that could be tricky, and let me elaborate a little bit more about that in the next few slides. But if this is not the first report I'm creating, I probably have all the background and all the basics done already. So it's just a matter of creating another dashboard. Couple of notes worth having in the back of your head during all the process. First of all, reduce the risk of unused dashboards. How to do it? Make KPI meetings dependent on the particular dashboard so that you don't have reports that nobody uses. And also, you're making sure that the report that you just created will actually be analyzed on a regular basis. Mm, Second note, never ever create a report just to have it, not following the process that we just explained. It will simply clutter the picture. You will have uh, just in case dashboards and just in case data, and believe me, the case will never happen. I said that the first time doing the report might be a little bit tricky. Let me use that opportunity to show you a little bit more about the architecture of how the reports are being created and how actually all that works, or let me put it that way, how it should work. Here is how your report should be created. So at the very bottom, you should have the so-called data sources. So that's the natural habitat of where the data is being produced and observed. Um, then you should have data lake. So this is the thing that you create to make your reports work faster and to make the creation of reports easier. Um, and the last part, the presentation part, sometimes referred to as business intelligence. This is the place where you create the dashboards and you consume them, so where you can see them and use them. Data source is a place or a system where certain events take place and data is being produced as a result of those events. It's not that only finance systems could be data sources. Let me give you a couple of examples. CRM would be a data source, Google Analytics or PWIC, or Hotjar, Ahrefs, Google Search Console. That could basically be anything, including, of course, your accounting system, your bank, your affiliate partners, or anything else. The list is indefinite. The data lake connects to your data sources. Typically, more than one data source is being used within the organization. Then it transfers the data. Bear in mind that it's not a one-time thing. You have to make sure that it's transferred now, but also be transferable in the future. Uh, then whatever was downloaded gotta be cleaned up and structured in a proper way. Here, it's worth noting that if you deal with number of data sources, then you're gonna have plenty of cases where the very same data is being labeled differently, but also you're gonna have a lot of labels for the very same data. So this is the place to take care of it. And last but not least is that Data Lake optimizes all the operations and provides one interface for your dashboard to consume everything. Um, Most of the companies, or at least a lot of them, omit the data lake. You could create a dashboard connecting directly to the data source. In my opinion, that's a very wrong tactic because as the time goes by, you're going to have more and more complex data, and at some point, it will become unmanageable. This is where all the magic happens. This is the place where you create your reports and where you view them or export them to any common formats like PDF. Bear in mind that those tools are fairly complicated, so you should not underestimate them. It will take some time for you to learn them. It will be a process for your team to get used to using it. So you should book some time to get to know it. Thanks a lot for your attention. I hope you find the knowledge that you got today useful for you. I hope everything was clear. However, in case it's not, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm happy to help and see you in the next episodes.